The opposite of a fact is a falsehood, as the opposite of one profound truth may very well be another profound truth.
So consider this. Every proverb has an equal and opposite proverb.
Huh?
Look before you leap versus strike while the iron is hot. Absence makes the heart grow fonder versus out of sight, out of mind. If at first you don't succeed, try again versus don't beat your head against a stone wall. Haste makes waste versus time waits for no man. Many hands make light work versus too many cooks spoil the broth. It's better to be safe than sorry versus nothing ventured, nothing gained.
Whoa!
Hitch your wagon to a star versus don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't judge a book by its cover versus clothes make the man. The squeaky wheel gets the grease versus the loudest duck gets shot first. So, to get the best results in what we do, it seems to make sense to get the right balance between opposite proverbs, opposite truths. At times, one proverb will be the wisest to follow. At other times, its opposing proverb will be the wisest. These opposites can be labeled as on the one hand versus on the other hand. Here are some examples. On the one hand, we want to standardize rules to make things consistent and more efficient. On the other hand, standardized rules over time can become outmoded, obsolete, and unstable. On the one hand, we want safety nets to protect us when bad things happen, like an auto accident or a job loss. On the other hand, we don't want to be so safe that we become insurance poor or tax poor. On the one hand, we want law enforcement to protect us from harm. On the other hand, we don't want bullying law enforcement that trashes our safety and well-being. On the one hand, we want a military to defeat tyranny to give us freedom. On the other hand, we don't want a military when it itself becomes tyrannical and crushes freedom.
Oh no!
On the one hand, we want to pursue our dreams and live creatively. On the other hand, we don't want unintended consequences from creative ideas that go bad. Because of opposing needs on the same issues, strong disagreements in politics happen legitimately. One side will fear losing important innovation because of too many interfering standards. The other side might fear an opposite set of things, such as a car crash because of not following important standards. In moments when two sides of an issue are perfectly honest with each other, both sides can argue opposite perspectives fervently and be right simultaneously. That's because pretty much every good solution in a complex system will have its downsides. No solution is perfect in every way. You can find fault with pretty much every solution. That includes your solutions, and solutions from those you admire and view as geniuses. For example, a raft is a great mode of transportation for navigating down White Rapids, but you will find fault with it if you need to carry large, heavy freight across the ocean. Thus, the person interested in recreational navigation through rapids will find a cargo ship to be a bad transportation choice. But the person who ships large, heavy freight across the oceans will find the small raft to be a bad transportation choice. The two people will legitimately be at odds with each other on which form of transportation to buy, since they have hugely different needs. A one-size-fits-all solution doesn't exist for needs this different. So people with diverse needs will legitimately have strong disagreements on which laws make sense and which ones don't make sense. These honest differences create enough challenges. Differences become much harder to resolve if we misrepresent what our opponents are saying. Many times we unknowingly misrepresent because of bad assumptions we make about our opponents. In these cases, we're just plain naive. we're not wise. But even so, that doesn't excuse us. All that naivete still causes us to wind up making foolish judgments. But far worse, people knowingly misrepresent their ideological opponents. They take cheap shots, believing that misleading others makes it easier to win the argument against someone or some idea they emotionally hate. The problem is, if you knowingly misrepresent, then you're on the path to self-deception. As soon as you become comfortable with knowingly misrepresenting someone else's position or intent, you yourself will start to miss even simple truths that should be easy to see. To be sure, your opponent could be very well dishonest. Your opponent could even be the one who started all the misleading and deception. But if you fall into the same pattern, you too will start missing simple truths and realities. If you habitually misrepresent, you, as wise as you may have once been, become naive.
Aww.
You start missing many simple but subtle truths. Just like your opponent, you can't see them either since your arguments now rely on premises that aren't true. To promote an insincere argument, you have to make intentional distortions work. As you try to make false narratives work, these false things start to become part of your core being. That, in turn, blinds you. Truths that should easily be seen now hide, since the truth gets in the way of the misrepresentations you push. A further difficulty of deception isn't just with the ones who misrepresent. It also rests with those who emotionally want that opponent to be wrong. No matter how pure that opponent, they will quickly believe misrepresentations made to destroy that person. These listeners, as well as the ones misrepresenting, want to believe what is false. And here's where you start seeing a mob mentality developing. A whole group of people, those who misrepresent and those who quickly believe that misrepresentation, emotionally become vested in a lie. They want these false narratives to work. In so doing, they join with those who slander, those who mock, and those who ridicule. But in all their mockery, they lose sight of even simple explanations, simple truths that would clear things up. They get so caught up in the false accusations that they, the listeners, join in the mockery, the slander, and false narratives. They work hard to force truth into what's false. So now, instead of solutions, the new goal of the self-deceivers is to prove the other side wrong, even where they are right. We wind up with the attitude,
We have to prove them wrong.
We destroy ourselves when we do that. We wind up forcing ourselves to miss other perspectives that we badly need. Coexisting but opposite truths do exist, but misrepresentation isn't part of either set of truths.
Stop!
Okay, I'll get back on track. Sorry about that. The focus here is the interesting discovery that opposite truths exist. It's not about people who misrepresent others that they don't like. The reason I got sidetracked like that is because the temptation is to now think that every perspective is true. It isn't. Many perspectives are flat wrong with no truth in them. Yet, there still are many opposite perspectives, both of which are true. Now, back to this thought about opposite truths. At the very beginning of this video, I gave a loose paraphrase of physicist Niels Bohr's observation. A more accurate quote is, "There are trivial truths and great truths." The opposite of a trivial truth is plainly false. The opposite of a great truth is also true. The temptation for many once they ponder this is to start thinking of falsehoods as opposite truths. The flaw in that thinking is to then take a bunch of foolish shortcuts and to try to avoid truths that are very real. For example, it would be much easier to get to the coffee shop that I like by not having all these buildings in the way. The trivial truth is that I can't drive my car through the buildings to get there. I have to either go around them, have them torn down, create tunnels through them, or figure out new laws of physics to be able to drive through the walls. For pretty much all of us, the trivial truth is that we have to drive around them. These other options may eventually be doable at a very high cost and effort, but they're so unlikely and unreasonable that we settle for the trivial truth that we can just walk or drive around the buildings to get to the coffee shop. We accept and live with the trivial truth. On the other hand, there are great truths where opposite great truths also exist. These opposite truths we label as paradoxes. Nature itself provides all sorts of paradoxes with opposites that many times make no sense to us. One such paradox led to Niels Bohr's observation of opposite truths. Bohr, who debated Einstein extensively and seemed to have the upper hand, called this the principle of complementarity, meaning truths could complement each other through contradictory and paradoxical properties. Very perplexing were experiments in quantum physics that appeared to show entanglement. If you observe a particle in one place that changes properties, then a linked particle, possibly one light years away, appears to instantly change its properties as well, as if the two were connected by a mysterious communication channel. Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. What makes this so perplexing is that the theory of relativity says that nothing can move faster than the speed of light. Yet, quantum theory suggests that particles light years away can respond to each other instantly. Those conflicting conclusions, based on observation, are mutually exclusive. One or the other can be true, but both can't be true. They're unresolvable truths, or so they seem. Yet, experiments appear to show that both are true. Thus, Niels Bohr suggested that the opposite of one profound truth may very well be another profound truth. So in that vein, we find life loaded with paradoxes. If we solve one, we receive a gift of 10 more. We start to notice many opposite truths that we so far can't reconcile. They're unsolved puzzles. We find them in nature, in economics, education, biology, religion and faith issues, political systems, and even in mathematics. No matter where we look, we eventually run across more paradoxes. That doesn't mean there's no reality. It doesn't mean there is no truth. Instead, what it means is that our capacity as human beings is too limited to grasp it all. But gaining understanding is interesting to pursue. I've concluded that God has made us to enjoy the pursuit of truth, even though we'll never achieve a full understanding of it. And thus, we will always be an interesting mix of being a believer in how certain opposite truths work, while a skeptic of our own belief at the same time. A takeaway paradox that we can ponder is that in some instances, a set of opposite truths will have trivial consequences, while in other instances, those same opposite truths can give us profound consequences.
And so goes the pursuit of truth.